Well, hello everyone! This is Dean McBean speaking, and today's Canversation is about two media products based on the themes of Australian stories. Also joining us today is esteemed CEO and my good pal, Sean McCorn.
Hey, poppin'!
So, Sean, what does make an Australian story?
Well, an Australian story is a media product about Australia, made in Australia, made by Australians. Now, why are these important, Dean?
Sharing these stories in the media helps us understand who we are and where we come from. It also makes sure everyone's voice is heard and keeps Aussie culture strong, even with so much media coming from other countries. However, recently the Australian film industry has declined.
Yes, the Australian film and TV industry has declined due to competition from big overseas productions, especially on streaming services like Netflix. Shows like Government demonstrate how even strong Australian stories can struggle. The government also removed 38 million from Screens Australia over 4 years during the 2014-15 budget.
And to add on to that, Sean, without proper funding, a lack of Australian films being advertised due to less budget, a lack of cinema support, and talented Australians moving elsewhere for more opportunities, the Australian film industry has really struggled.
But you know what I think, Dean? I think it's time to discuss our first Australian media product.
That's right, Sean. First off, we'll be talking about Dark Art. Now, I have a question. How does Dark Art represent a diverse version of Australian identity?
Well, Sean, it represents one of the stories from First Nations culture, which is often not represented nearly enough within Australian media. It does this through the superhero comic genre by combining the genre conventions with a story from First Nations culture. The choice of superhero comic also helps the text reach a larger audience, as people who like the comics will also be inclined to buy it and will therefore learn more about their culture.
Well put, Sean. In the media, especially in the superhero genre, there isn't a lot of representation for all First Nations people. The reason it's so important to have these representations in Dark Art is because it's an amazing way to include their culture and not make it stay uncovered or unknown.
Yeah, this is so it doesn't feel unusual to see it, which makes First Nation people and all other Australians feel more connected, right?
Yes, and I have another question for you, Sean. How does Dark Art utilize codes and conventions to demonstrate Australian culture?
One example I love is that during the comic, the sky will turn purple and blue during certain points, which symbolizes the dreaming world, a very large aspect of the First Nations culture. First Nations people inside the dreaming during the comic also get vibrant stripes across their faces and bodies, which represents the body paint they use in their culture.
Indeed, a subtle element that further indulges upon the First Nations representation inside the comic.
Dark Art also uses speech bubbles as a way to identify characters using different text colors, on top of creating different text borders or removing them entirely to create effect behind how something should be read.
And with that, I believe this is the end of our segment on Dark Art. Before we move on to our next text, let me leave you viewers with a question. How do you think the Australian film industry would be different if more stories were told by those who have been here the longest? Submit your answers by adding our Twitter to be discussed in a future episode. Now, let's move on. Our next...
hey man, before you start the next one, you should do that thing you promised you would do. Like, if I come on the show and stuff.
Why, of course. Sorry for forgetting. My dear viewers, let me tell you about today's sponsor.
Sean's gone. So, Sean's gone.
Why, yes. Haha. Sean's Corn, the best in scenes.
That's not how it goes, Dean.
Oh, of course. My apologies, Sean. It was simply too perfect.
Just do it already.
Fine. Whatever. Sean's Corn, the best since you were born. All the other companies can only mourn. Good corn of the cobs, better than the other mobs. Need good food. We're on the job.
Whatever. Let's just move on, guys.
Our second and last Australian media product today is the one, the only...
The show about that dog family? Never seen it.
For those of you who have been living under a rock like Sean, Bluey is a hit animated TV show about a 6-year-old blue heeler puppy who lives with her family in Brisbane. Each episode follows Bluey, her sister Bingo, and their parents. They play, learn, and explore everyday life in Australia.
Oh, let me just... Okay. It's an example of an Australian story because it shows Aussie culture, humor, family, life, uses Australian voices, and features recognizable settings, and values like imagination, mateship, and fairness.
but how does Bluey show Australian identity?
Well, I haven't seen the show.
That's okay, Sean. It just makes you useless.
Okay, I'm sorry. What? All
In
right.
Bluey, Australian identity is shown through the everyday life of a typical suburban family living in Brisbane. The show uses Aussie slang like mate, arvo, and sparky, which helps create an authentic Aussie feel. The Healer family, with 2 parents and 2 kids, represents the classic nuclear family and shows values like creativity, fairness, and spending time outdoors. The suburban setting with backyards, parks, and neighborhood streets reflects a very common Australian lifestyle. The show includes some Australian stereotypes too, like the laid-back attitude and love of outdoor play, but it also presents these in a warm and realistic way. Sean, read out what I just texted you, alright?
You better arrive soon, or I'll pop your car.
No! The most recent one!
Let's see. Okay. The characters' use of Australian jargon and the focus and family games and imagination help build a strong sense of Australian culture. Bluey offers a relatable and positive representation of modern Australian family life. While it may be a bit over the top very occasionally, it's done in a fun way that is easy for younger people to understand.
And how does it represent Australians themselves, Sean?
Okay, let's make one more mistake and I will kidnap your family.
Sean! Scroll!
Sorry. Okay.
Down!
My apologies. Okay. Bluey offers a warm and playful look at Aussie life through a typical suburban family with that easygoing larrikin spirit, especially from Bandit. It shows everyday ups and downs in a way that feels real and relatable. And the show also includes a variety of diverse families and characters reflecting Australians' multicultural society. However, while it celebrates many Aussie values, I feel it could do more to represent Indigenous communities and other less visible groups. Was that good enough?
Yeah, sure. Whatever.
Okay.
But with that, it's time for final thoughts. Sean, why are these 2 Australian media products so important towards representing Australian culture and identity?
Okay. Australian stories like Bluey and Darker are really important because they show the world what Australia is all about. Bluey demonstrates the fun, everyday life of Aussie families, which are full of humor and heart, while Darkheart brings First Nations culture into the spotlight.
Together, they help people everywhere see the real, rich diversity of Australia and what makes our identity unique. These kinds of stories keep our culture alive and help us connect with others around the world. And with that, we can move on to our real final segment and new addition to the show.
Sean, you didn't tell me about this new segment.
What this new segment is, you may ask? Welcome to the Preservation Conversation, where we rank the newest and hottest canned goods on the market submitted by you guys. First off, we have...
Hey, man, this wasn't in the schedule. I gotta get, going soon. So,
Quiet!
Oh.
Now, our first product is Duncan's Pumpkins. Delicious. 9 out of 10 for Duncan.
Wait, Dean, did you lock the door? I need to
Next
go.
up is Don's Prawns. Okay. Not the worst, I guess.
Sean,
5 out of 10. Could you use a bit more flavor, Don?
Please let me leave. I have an appointment.
Shut up, alright?
Sean, let me leave!
And for our last product, we have Sean's Corns.
Wait, what?
No, that is utterly disgusting. 1 out of 10, worse than the bugs.
What did you say about my corn?
It's crap, horrible, waste of money.
You bring me onto the show, screw up my advertisement, lock me in here, and now you call my beautiful corn crap? I've had enough with you. You're going down, Dean.
Seems like someone's a little angry. It's okay, you can leave now.
Ah!
Oh God! Sean, what the hell? Didn't think I would have to do this, but you leave me no choice, Sean.
What is
that marks the end of today's conversation. I hope you all enjoy.